Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer, Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, the 29th. Almost done with April. We've got one more day to go. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So just by looking at the screen there and the Excel spreadsheet, you could see that there was more areas that went up once again than down. Also, what I would note is growth outperformed once again, up about 0.7 of a percentage point was the growth ETF versus up about 0.5% for value today. So continuation and all the indices basically what outperformed for today were the Qs, and also the micro caps continue to do pretty well. Micro and small caps doing well. So I'll go through some of the market moves with you. Try to do this kind of quick for you today. I'll also talk about a couple standout plays for the day, which and groups, we'll call it that. But here's where we are in SPY. We're getting very close to that 50-day moving average, which is lining up with some major resistance there up at 560. It has been kind of climbing the wall of worry, I would say, in terms of what the market has been doing over the last week or so, as well as climbing the overhead supply as well. So we managed, the S&P stops right at the bottom of the value area for the month. I'm just going to illustrate this so that you can see this a little bit better. There's the value area for the month in yellow, and the value area for the year is this pink box, right? And we're getting very close. And notice how the top of the value area lines up with the 50-day moving average. That's what I would really be paying attention to as we get closer. But you could also say, if you don't want to go through that and say, I don't care about resistance, I'm basically following the trend, we continue to glide above this 5-period moving average. So probably something's going to happen here when price gets to this 50-day moving average and this 5-day moving average. Probably something is going to have to give. Either we get back above the 50-day moving average, or we begin to kind of break back below a little bit. Also, note, I'm starting to look at the May value area. I actually put on a little bit of a hedge just in case, and I try to do that as low cost as possible, just in case we get some type of a check back in the next 2 weeks. Before I go to the rest of the technicals, and the reason why I decided to do that today is because we've got a lot of events coming up. We've got tomorrow, you're going to get just to preview the data that we've got for the rest of the week. Here's what we have. GDP, which I don't care about personally because it is a lagging indicator, but the market could possibly move on the PCE number, right? That is the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation. We get that number at 10 o'clock tomorrow. My guess why that number is coming out at 10 tomorrow versus 8:30. I don't know. Perhaps they're jamming 2 days of data into one, because usually we don't get the PCE price index data the same day as GDP. So because April only has 30 days rather than 31, I'm guessing that they're kind of jamming in 2 days of data into one. Why they won't release it at 8:30, I don't know. Maybe it gets confused with the core PCE price index. I don't know. That's my that's my theory. That's my theory, and I'm going with that. Besides that, right? Besides for the last trading day of the month for tomorrow, then when we look to head for the rest of the week, we're also going to get ISM numbers. We're going to get the monthly jobs data. We're also going to get Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Apple, right? Those first two names reporting after the close on Wednesday, so tomorrow. And then the following two names will report after the close on Thursday. So it makes sense for me to say, okay, I don't mind putting on a small hedge. And basically what I did was I did a put spread for SPY. And what that does is, like, I don't really want to, just so that everybody understands like how a hedge works, right? A hedge is giving you insurance, right? You don't really want, when you buy insurance, like let's say you buy homeowners insurance, right? Just because you bought a homeowners insurance policy, it doesn't mean that you want your house to burn down, right? Or some other damage. You have an insurance policy in case something goes wrong. That's how a hedge is supposed to work for you. Okay, so just make sure that you understand the terminology, because some people don't like to lose money. They think, oh, geez, I don't want to lose money on that hedge. You're supposed to, right? You don't. That means if your hedge is working, that means that probably the rest of your portfolio is not. Hey, that is what it is. And sometimes when we feel a little bit uneasy about a recent move, then we like to put on a little bit of a hedge. So that's my defense. So let's go through what the Qs did as well. So just wanted to mention that. I always like to kind of give you guys some ideas and some transparency in terms of what I'm doing. The Qs, bullish 80% rule for the month of April. Now, we're running out of time for April, so not going to be able to kind of complete that rule by the end of the month, most likely. But nice advancement, and we're right at this 50-day moving average. Remember, the Qs have kind of outperformed a bit, so they've advanced a little bit further than what the S&P has done. Also, when we look at these 1-hour value areas, I was kind of hung up on this yesterday. We rejected this yesterday right in the beginning of the day. See this candle right here in the beginning of the day, but we managed to kind of get through this. Now we're retracing a little bit here after hours because of some earnings reports, but I would pay attention to for tomorrow, 473.40. That's your breakout level, right? Because we're just breaking above this yellow box, which is the value area. Again, I'm going to turn this off so you could see just the value area for the week, and we're above that level. Let's do the same thing for the S&P, just so that you can see the level to watch here, right? And notice price is above the value area for the week as well, and that support is 551.38, resistance 558.33. All right, and I mentioned IWM, which I haven't really been covering that much, although I did note that IWM has kind of led this move. And this is a nice move. We're kind of moving towards the bottom of the value area for the month. But you could see, here was the move above the April 9th highs. And we've this actually got above those April 9th highs before the S&P and Qs did. All right, so that's just a little bit. As I mentioned, there's some reports after the close, one of which is SMCI. They announced preliminary results. I just put this on Twitter. This was not a scheduled report. These are preliminary numbers. That's sometimes what companies do, is when they have a change in their business, sometimes they will go ahead, and now that once they're aware of it, they will release the results. So they're coming back and they're testing those previous lows. They're going to affect some other AI names. Specifically, I see NVIDIA down after hours. That name is down to about 107-ish, right? So that's something to be mindful of. And basically 108 is a level to watch in NVIDIA. So SMCI affecting a few things. Other names, we've had so many names that have been reporting today, this morning after the close. You've got a number of names. So again, with semis, it's kind of interesting. You've got some names that are doing well and some names that are not. For example, like, yesterday's price, feels like yesterday, but this morning's price action, you had Cadence, which had a really nice quarter. Right. So you have some names in the semis group that are doing okay. Cadence was one of them, and then you have some other names that are not. NXPI went down. Now they did finish off the lows, but it's a very mixed bag in terms of semis. I'm going to talk about what has been doing well, and that's been soft. So first of all, frame of reference. Here's what the XLK, here's what overall tech looks like. Again, tech is a pretty important sector. It's about 30% of the overall market, but notice how it's still below the 50-day moving average, still below the 200-day moving average, and it's right into resistance, right? So that's the overall market cap weighted tech ETF. But when we split tech apart, and we talked about semis, which again have been lagging. They've made a nice move from the lows, but notice how far they are away from the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. Now, what's been outperforming? And you probably have heard me say this. If you're a regular viewer of my videos, I've been talking about this for a week. But look at Software Go, right? This started with SAP, Pega earnings, ServiceNow. All of those reports came in last week, but that's a heck of a move. At this point, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if we're going to be able to get over those previous highs, but I would say how I would play this is to go long versus this 200-day moving average. So a very nice, big difference there. And then what's been even more impressive and hasn't even had that many earnings has been cyber companies. Look at how far the cyber ETF is above the 200-day moving average. CrowdStrike, fan favorite CrowdStrike, has been leading the move, but you also have Okta, which was announced that it was moving to a new index today, or the announcement was last night. Nice move in Okta, which is I'm long that name in the TTG trend portfolio. Zscaler has been moving pretty nicely. I love this weekly chart and Zscaler. We featured that in Substack yesterday, and I actually went long this name today because it's above the value area for the year, and it's also getting above this recent range. But you go up and down this group, and it's strong to quite strong. FTNT is finally making a move too. This name has been pretty quiet, but very, very nice move in most of these cyber names. Palo Alto also, look at this over the last week. I know we've got some resistance here, but just very impressive in terms of some short-term trades. How about this guy, Tesla? Right, making some moves here. I talked about how I got long this name last week. It ran into some resistance. First attempt rejected. That's okay. Sometimes things will get rejected. Sometimes many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s can be multiple times here. This is at a very crucial area here, right into the 200-day moving average and right into the top of the value area. Also, when we turn on the value area for the year, you're going to see you're above this. But now you're pressing up here. So I like this. I do think that this is the way to go, or this is one name that I'm going to be, trying to position and out and bigger outsized position in. Why? Not so much because of the cars. I think that's important too, but robotics. I really think that companies. There was a story out earlier. I think it was Apple. The administration was saying that Apple needs to make their iPhones in the US, and maybe with the aid of robotics and robots, they'll be able to do that. Kind of see what's happening here, right? People are trying to say that, maybe you can't build new factories, but maybe robots can begin to kind of do some of that, work that you were doing at other places. Very interesting. And I think, there's other plays obviously in robotics, but I think Tesla is a good bet for that. And I actually put on a longer dated option trade just to kind of start that trade out, but I'm still long stock as well. So I think that's kind of, one of the most interesting, those are the interesting things for the day. Congrats if you were in this trade with me last week. We put this out on Substack. This was just a technical play. Plus, we saw a little bit of option activity in HIMS as well. Didn't know if they were going to be, if they were positioning for earnings or something else. But as always, for option activity, I do pay attention to option activity, but we never know what they're doing. Mainly, what I do is I look at option activity and say, huh, that's interesting, right? Let me plug it into my system, and if it looks like it's a compelling chart, I will take the trade, which is what I did in HIMS today, up 23%. And I was even taking profits in this trade a little bit yesterday, so I didn't get the full ride of the move today, but the setup was there. I mean, really tight price action. We know growth stocks, got off and running last week, so this was a nice trade. All right, guys, that is it for today's recap. Have a great night. And if you want to, please make sure that you are signed up for Substack. You could try the free version first. You could get a flavor for it. But basically, what the free version is going to do is inform you of all the big market moves, all the themes that are going on, all the trends that are going on. And then if you want to buy purchase the monthly Substack, it's just $20 a month, but you could see what trades I'm taking, like HIMS, as well as all the setups. I think today I put 4 or 5 different setups that I'm watching. Sometimes I'm going to take a couple of them. Sometimes I'm not, depending on how I'm positioned. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.